Hey heroes, this is your resident string player Darian.
And this is Angela, your certified brass player.
And you're listening to Hero Talk, the show that is here to talk about real life
and real women in music.
Love it.
Thank you.
It's uplifting, all the little flourishes that go up.
That's courtesy of our composer. Yeah.
Female, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's amazing. Now, here with us today is Dr. Amanda Stringer, the CEO of the Tallahassee Symphony Orchestra. She has been the CEO since 2010 and is credited with growing the symphony's budget and annual donation funds. And we're so happy to have you here with us today.
I am so honored to be here with you too.
We're so excited, and I'm super interested to know a little bit more about your background and what got you into music.
Well, if you start at the beginning, my mother is a pianist, and so she actually, this is one of the things I think that was the strongest influence on me. She eventually became the dean of the College of Fine Arts at the University of Southern Mississippi.
Oh.
So she was a pianist and earned a doctorate, and one of the kind of influential things for me was when I was in fifth grade, she needed to get a doctorate in music in order to teach at the university. So she and my father actually split apart for a year. They spent a year apart so she could go do her coursework at the University of Oklahoma. And my brother and my father stayed at home, and we went off together. And that was kind of my first example of a strong woman going off to do something she needed to do to further her career.
That's powerful. Wow.
Yeah, it was a thing. And I remember her crying on the way. The first time we left and got in the car, she was crying. It was hard. My father kind of said, "It's going to be okay. You got to go do this for yourself." And then it was like, yeah, boom, she was all over it.
Nice. And a great example of a supportive husband.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes. So anyway, so she was a pianist, and I started playing the piano when I was very young, and it was kind of a no-brainer that was something I was going to have to do until I graduated from high school. And at some point throughout those years, those formative years, I fell in love with it. So got 4 different degrees in music, actually, thinking I was going to be a college professor. Mm-hmm. And actually taught a lot of music theory and had jobs at 2 different universities before I got this position when I was 40.
Wow. And were they all performance-based degrees?
They were, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Although when I was getting my doctorate, my assistantship was in theory. So when I graduated with my doctorate, I taught full-time on the music theory faculty at the University of Oklahoma. And then when I moved here, I taught theory adjunct.
Oh, wow. So did you start, I'm sorry, I don't know the whole background, but did you start out as like orchestral personnel manager, or was it straight into CEO?
No. So I was teaching theory at FSU. I was teaching adjunct. I think I had 3 classes, 2 graduate level classes and an undergraduate level class. And I started just looking around to think, what else might I do in life? I didn't really want to do that. I knew I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. And so I looked into paralegal school. I looked into law school, just trying to go outside the box from something, because I had done nothing but music my entire life. So I wanted to explore and see if there were other things I might be interested in and good at. But then I thought, I might like arts admin. That seems like something that would be fun to me. I like to organize things, and I'm kind of bossy. So
I love that. Nice.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So I contacted Ann Hodges, who at the time was running the arts admin program at FSU, and asked her if I could enroll in her program or take some classes. And she said, "You don't need another degree. You've got 4 degrees. You just need to get a job. So you need to get some experience." So I started looking for jobs, and I was looking outside of Tallahassee at perhaps doing a summer music festival that I could organize from here and then go there in the summer, just different things like that. But the youth orchestra job here, the Tallahassee Youth Orchestra job, became available. So I got my feet wet doing that. That's a part-time job. And a couple of years into that, I did this really amazing course that the League of American Orchestras runs called Essentials of Orchestra Management. Mm. And it's almost a 2-week-long course. It's super, super intense. At the time, it was in New York City. It's now moved out to Los Angeles. But you go to New York, and you have classes back to back to back from like 8 a.m. to midnight. It was very intense for 2 weeks. And they give you homework, and you get to meet all the people in the field that are best at what they do in every particular area of orchestra management. So, for instance, Brent Osink, who at the time was the CEO of the San Francisco Symphony, came in, and he talked to us about being a CEO. And the fellow who's the head of the American Federation of Musicians came in and talked to us about unions. And the person who runs the development side of things for the New York Phil came in, and we had a session with her. So they really bring in the heavy hitters throughout the country to kind of give you a taste of what all the different various aspects of running an orchestra is. Mm-hmm. And I was exhausted, getting 6 hours of sleep for 2 weeks or whatever it was. But got on the airplane and I thought, oh my goodness, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. It just lit a fire under me. I was so excited about it and all the possibilities of what orchestras can be and mean to communities. So I came back to Tallahassee and I decided this is what I want to do. And I started looking for jobs, and literally within maybe 6 months, this particular job came open. And I applied and got it.
The CEO. Wow. That's awesome.
So we're a small shop at the time. There were only 2 people. Now and at the time it was only 1 full-time person, which would have been me, and a 30-hour-a-week person. And so we've now, just 12 years later, just gotten to 3 full-times. I mean, we've got quite a few part-times, but yeah, we're still a small shop.
Yeah. Wow.
That's really impressive. How did you know that it was like your calling?
Well, I'll start by saying this. Because we have interns here regularly that work in the office who are getting arts admin degrees. And I work with them, and they're so amazing, and they are so different from what I was when I was their age. I was very steeped in the performance aspect of things and practicing, 6 or 8 hours a day, like crazy stuff, like both of you do, I'm sure, and trying to juggle assistantships and all that. So I look at them, and they're just almost different creatures than what I was at the time. My head was so into the music side of things. So I think I wouldn't have been ready for this at that time, but it was kind of like as I just grew and changed and became older, and maybe my values changed, or I got to know myself more, I figured out this is a better fit for me. Mm-hmm. I didn't particularly like teaching piano. And at one point I thought that because I've always been a person that has a lot of different kinds of friends, and I felt like I was around people that were very similar all the time, and I wanted to be out in the broader community instead of just, if you're a musician, you're always with musicians all the time. Yeah. And so in my job now, I get to spend time with lots of different kinds of people that help the orchestra work and help make everything run, but that, like, your specialty could be, you could be an insurance agent because we need insurance, right? Mm-hmm. But this guy is so great, and I love talking to him. So in other words, I feel like my world's a little broader, and I feel like I know lots of different kinds of people, which I really enjoy.
Nice.
About the position.
Yeah, that's really inspiring for like those of us that are in the degree still, and then maybe one day we don't want to like teach as much. We want to go more into the arts admin world. I'm getting a certificate in arts administration.
Great.
So I'm excited to hopefully use that one day. Well, I guess now with Hero.
Well, so, someone once asked me what they thought the bravest thing I'd ever done was. And there are a lot of kind of stereotypical answers you could make to that question, but I really think it was really, really hard for me to take the plunge into this, right? Because and this is, I think, one of the things that makes me effective at my job is that I understand the musician's mindset. I understand where they've come from. You've been playing your instrument since you're 4 years old. You spent more hours doing that than anything else in your life. It defines who you are. You're passionate about the music. You're passionate about your particular instrument. And so for me to determine that I wasn't going to be able to do as a pianist, I wasn't going to be able to accomplish things as a pianist that were going to make me ultimately fulfilled, that I had to give that up in order to do this thing. Mm-hmm. That was a hard leap of faith. And I've seen a few other friends do it. I have a friend who's a violinist who just quit one day and decided to go to law school.
Oh, wow.
And he still plays, and he's super happy being a lawyer. So I just, I congratulate people when they do that, because it's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And I completely understand why it's hard.
Yeah. I've had friends who are like, what would you do if you weren't a violinist? I'm like, I can't even like wrap my head around it sometimes. And I'm doing something that's not violin right now, trying to start Hero. And I'm like, this is so weird. I'm spending my time doing other things besides practicing and stuff related to music school. And it's kind of like a weird change.
Do you feel guilty about it?
Sometimes, actually. Mm-hmm. There are moments where I was like, I didn't practice. I worked for Hero essentially, and did, a lot of teaching myself new things. Because there's a lot about starting a company and working for a nonprofit that aren't addressed in school.
Right.
And
trial by fire.
That's what it feels like. Like I'm trying to teach myself like tax laws and trying to understand. I'm like, do I need a lawyer for this? And like, do I need to know what this contract is or all these other things?
Filing articles of incorporation, right? You've had to do that.
Yeah. And so there are moments where I didn't practice as much as I usually would have. And I'm already feel like that guilt. I'm like, I didn't practice like a full 4 hours today or something like that.
I used to feel like that too. I remember when I finished my doctorate, one night turning on the television. I had not watched television in years. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, this is what everybody else in the world does. Like they come home at night and they watch television because, you know, you're either like working on your coursework or you're writing your dissertation or you're practicing. I mean, you just don't give yourself that luxury during the week at least.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I think if I ever watch TV, it's while I'm like eating a meal. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to take a couple minutes to let my brain go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's good. You should do that. But don't feel guilty about what you're doing. I think it's amazing.
It's weird how you feel that though.
Yeah.
And that kind of takes me to another question I had. Do you think if arts admin was incorporated in your major, you would have discovered your passion earlier on?
That's a really good question. I think I would have.
Really?
So I feel like my my parents did a really good job exposing me to lots of arts. I had the fortunate circumstance, even though I grew up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, which is kind of a desert culturally. There's a great university there that has a great music program and a theater program. But my father is an English professor, and the University of Southern Mississippi had a great reciprocal program where they would take students to London every year, and he took students to London to study Shakespeare. So I got to accompany him on 4 different trips in the summer to London. And I think that's where I really got exposed to theater at large and got to hear my first professional symphony orchestra and got to hear all sorts of amazing performers. And subsequent to that, I actually studied there for a year by myself and as a graduate student. And I'm saying that because at the time, it never occurred to me that there's something behind the scenes that's making all that click. So I think if I had that even thought that this is something people do for a living, they work in theaters and they make productions happen, I think that might have clicked a little earlier. Although I did have the musician's mindset, as I'm sure you all are very familiar with, of like, you're a purist. I'm a musician and that's it. You know, I don't want to do this extraneous stuff. So it took me a little while to get there. That's why I say I'm very different. I was a very different student than the ones that come and intern for us. So it took me a little while to get there, but once I kind of got over that hump of not being a snob about it, you know, I think I would have gotten into it earlier for sure.
Yeah, I definitely feel like when I was younger, and I feel like a lot of the newer generation of musicians are trying to dip their toes in more things revolving around music. Because when I was younger, I was like, I'm only going to be a violinist, you know, I'm going to audition for an orchestra.
I'm going to be a soloist.
I don't know if I immediately went there. My stage fright was like, maybe not for us. But I definitely feel like as I've gotten older, and I think a lot of my friends might say this similarly, like they're like, oh, there are other things in music. You kind of just have to find your own path in it.
Yeah, and I will say that this career is extremely creative. So I think that was one of the things I was worried about leaving behind was creativity and self-expression. And you can do that as an administrator. I mean, when you come up with programs, you're creating something, right? And when you're bringing things to life, you're creating. So while there is paperwork involved and all sorts of grant writing and things like that to make it happen, it's still creative work. So I think that's the thing I love most about this job is that it does give me a creative outlet in addition to all the admin side of things.
Yeah. So a lot of things that we've talked about as well have like roots to community engagement. Do you think that's another favorite part of your time here? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then one question I have is, what programs sell the most to the Tallahassee community? Is it like more classical works, or is it newer works, or a mix, or the pop concerts that you all do?
So we are very conscious to not do what's already being offered, right? Because FSU has 2 great orchestras and a new music festival and all sorts of other wonderful things going on in the college. So we're very deliberate about, we want to offer the community something that they can't get in any other place in Tallahassee or even in the region. We have found and this is the data backs this up actually nationwide, that the old standard war horses sell big. I mean, if you, and, you know, I was telling someone the other day, we went to our national conference. My board chair went with me and 2 other board members, and we were having dinner. And I asked them, like, what is your concert experience? Because I'm sure it's completely different from mine. Because when I go, I know the repertoire. And so I'm either picking it apart, which I hate to do. I try not to do that.
Yeah.
You know, or you're like, oh my gosh, like, I know how this piece of music's put together. I know the structure of it. I know when the exposition, development, and recapitulation are happening. And so you kind of anticipate how it's going to unfold, and you feel that catharsis because you know the structure of it. That is not how they listen at all. You know, they don't listen to music that way. They just go in and absorb the sound and see how it makes them feel, or just go along for the ride. So that was really interesting for me to hear. And I say that because I think a lot of our patrons have a music background, and they've heard these various repertoire on the radio or growing up, or on, you know, a lot of them probably had LPs. And then they come and hear it live, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's a completely different experience, and it's exhilarating. So we try to do, I mean, you know, we try to make sure we have some sort of standard barn burner piece on each program. Not every single program, but we try for the most part to kind of make that the meat of what we do, and then experiment with new music or on the edges a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I like that. Especially, do you feel like there is a responsibility to try to program more new stuff, as like to open the door for new like composers and new artists and things like that?
Absolutely. I mean, look, there's so much good music being written right now, and if we, you know, we're limited because we only have 5 classical concerts a year. And so we don't have a lot of room to experiment. Like, we just, as far as the business model goes, we need to know that there's going to be something on there that people want to hear, and it's going to sell. So therefore, when we're working around whatever that piece is, whatever the hook is, then we're able to look at newer pieces and introduce people to them.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's amazing that you're a CEO that has so much background in music, and it's awesome as well that like a lot of your staff members, there's like a mix here. It seems like, and what you've been talking about, like the interns that are in arts admin, and maybe that are like Julia, who is a trumpet DM student, and then you have people like Katie, who is an arts admin, have also played flute. It's just like a well diverse group here. I think that's amazing that something like that is here in Tallahassee.
It's great. I mean, we've really benefited from the arts admin program at FSU. Every intern we've had in the 12 years I've been here has gotten a phenomenal job. And one of my, we've had very few male interns, sorry to say.
I'm okay with that.
So, yeah, I mean, we kind of, I don't know, I guess we're a little biased, but I keep in touch with a lot of them, and they're strong females doing an amazing thing in the field. And that's one of the things I feel proud about, is a lot of them come back to me and say, you were a good role model for me, or I really loved working for you, or I learned so much working in the Tallahassee Symphony. And, you know, to an outsider, it might be like, oh, it's Tallahassee Symphony. It's only, you know, $1 million budget, and they've only got these number of concerts. But, you know, what happens here is, because we are a small shop, the interns get real experience. They're not just Xeroxing and filing. You know, they have to help us. So, you know, so they get real life experience doing things that are important. And because the office is so small, they hear all the stuff that's going on around. You know, they know our business.
Do you ever feel like pressure being a woman in a leadership position?
I don't think I feel pressure necessarily. So it's no, I don't.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
But do you ever feel like it might be like this expectation? Because you mentioned briefly, like when we were like talking via email, about like this stereotype about women, and I don't remember your exact wordage, but like being too powerful or too overbearing.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if that's necessarily for me a woman thing. It's just something, since I was a little kid, I always like, Mandy, you need to tone it down a bit. Like, I was always kind of, I don't know, I grew up in South Mississippi, so there were lots of demure, nice young girls, you know, that kind of, their mothers would be proud of them, and they wore their bows in their hair and did everything they were supposed to do. And that's not to say that I don't consider myself ultra feminine, because I love a ruffle more than anything. But there was just something from the time I was a kid, I was very questioning. And like, I remember sitting in Sunday school and saying, when they taught us about Jonah and the whale, I'm like, there's no way that happened. That's just impossible. You know, and my Sunday school teacher went and told my mother, and it was a thing, and all the parents were talking about me, you know. So I felt that as a child, but I don't know. And I guess I compared to other girls, I felt like, I'm a little bit too much. And that's just something that I've grown into. I mean, it's great when you're 40 and you feel that way, but you know, when you're a kid and trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So, you know, I didn't never feel insecure about it. I just thought, I'm not like some of these other young girls.
Yeah. I think a lot of women can relate to that too. I mean, growing up, I definitely had a similar feeling. My mom was like, oh, you're interesting.
You're interesting.
I mean, I'm also the only musician in my family, so
wow, that's tough.
I definitely came out of some different family lineage that we have no idea
Did
about.
they try to dissuade you from going into music?
No, actually, they're very supportive. They're super supportive to this day, but they're like, we have no idea where you got it from.
That's great.
That's awesome. You're such a powerful female in our community and in the orchestra community. What advice do you have for female leaders?
So I will tell you what I tell everyone that works in this office, because we're all female. You just have to know yourself, and you have to trust yourself, and you have to give it time. Because everybody, when you first get into a field like this, everybody's going to make you cry once. And then once you cry once, you're over it. Like you just have, you know, it takes that perseverance to develop a tough skin. And the more experience you have, you learn how to put the noise aside and move ahead and just focus on what's right and what you know to be right. I think you have to follow your own inner compass. I can give you a really good example of that. Something that's happened here recently where it just took a lot of kind of like, got to keep your eyes on the prize as far as a program we had going. But that's what I tell the young people that come here, the young women, is just, you know, stick with it. Because once you get enough experience under your belt, there's nothing like feeling super confident that you you can take on whatever comes your way.
Oh yeah.
And there's an interesting fact that it's almost 30% of like chief executive roles in the U.S. and major symphonies are filled by women.
Yes.
And I think that's amazing, first off. But in comparison, in like the Fortune 500, the number is almost less than 5%.
Right.
Why do you think there's that discrepancy in your opinion?
Maybe it just has to do with, we're still grappling with stereotypes, is that, you know, men are science and math and women are artsy or whatever. You know, maybe that's what it is. I think that will certainly change in the next 20 years, but that's got to be most of what's going on there. Because certainly there's no research or data to show that men are more competent than women in any of those fields.
Yeah, agreed.
What I can tell you is that in the orchestra field in particular, there are a lot of very strong women.
Yeah.
So I don't know if y'all are familiar with Deborah Borda, but she was the CEO of Los Angeles Philharmonic for a number of years. She's recently, a few years back, 5 years ago maybe, she went to the New York Phil. She was the general manager in New York. She went out to LA, then she came back to New York. And she just recently has retired, but she is a badass bitch.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I love that.
She's a really good role model for women in the field. There are several women like that in the orchestral world.
Do you think there's a way that the progressiveness of women in the arts world to translate to the non-art field? Like, do you think there's a way?
Absolutely. The skills are exactly the same.
Yeah. Do you think there's something that other fields could learn from us?
I don't know, because I haven't been in another field. But
That's true. That's
but
fair.
what I can say is I think that people in the arts are very collaborative. There's a lot of idea sharing that goes on, at least in my industry, among orchestras, and everyone's willing to share ideas. And, you know, it's not like, this is my secret, I'm keeping it, I do this better than anyone else. Everyone's willing to help and mentor and share. So I think that's, regardless of what sex you are, our industry is very open to that.
Oh yeah. That and like the flexibility. I've read a lot of different articles about that like topic, and a lot of corporations just looking into arts nonprofits and seeing how they run. It's very collaborative, like you said, and flexible, and just very like a family.
Yeah, and the ability to work together. I mean, I think that's a special skill that musicians have, is this ability to collaborate, because ensemble work is all about working together and coming to like a consensus.
And trusting.
Yeah,
that is very
is a big thing.
Big thing. I think that that's one of the things that we have a lot of in this organization, at least on the admin side. Like, I trust my staff. I think they trust me. The board trusts me. I trust the board. And so when that trust is not there, the whole thing is completely dysfunctional. So I think that's number one.
And that kind of takes me to one of the last questions I want to ask you is, in a previous interview that I read, you said if a nonprofit isn't growing, it's dying. And I was thinking, like, what are your dreams for the symphony? Like, how much do you want to see this grow?
So when I say grow, I don't necessarily mean in budget size, because there are a lot of other ways to grow, right? I will say, I'll start with this. When I got the position 12 years ago, our budget was only $460,000. And now this year we're at $1.3 million. So we have had quite a bit of growth, and it's not been linear. It's been like that typical growth chart where you see where it jumps up and down. And one would think that perhaps we would not be having our largest budget season right now post-COVID, but we are, because of a lot of groundwork that we laid before COVID. And we had the trust of our patrons, and we had the trust of the community. So when we came out of COVID, that was all still there. And we put a lot of work into that. So when we talk about growth for the symphony, I feel like we're going to expand more into different kinds of work. So, for instance, this year we are working on a pilot program for a strings program at an elementary school in town called Sable Palm Elementary. It's in zip code 32304, which is the poorest zip code in the state of Florida. Like, these kids have nothing. And so it's really half strings program, half social services. And I think that's something that's really important, that we as a symphony can move into that realm in Tallahassee, because we have so much poverty here, and we have so many underprivileged kids that have struggles. And so while, you know, everyone's familiar with the El Sistema model and bringing kids up out of bad circumstances and giving them a life through music, I feel like in Tallahassee it's going to be a little bit different than that. I think you have to really know your community to make that work. But so I see us getting into that area, because that is, to my knowledge, there's not another large arts organization in town doing that particular kind of work. They might have a program here and there, but nothing that's really kind of robust and really, really part of the community. So I can see us growing that. I hope we can grow that. I think that would be transformative for our community and for the TSO. The other thing I am loving is the Pops concerts that we've done.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You know, I don't...
Huge turnouts, too.
Huge
Definitely.
turnouts. I mean, like, a highlight was the Star Wars concert we did last November in Cascades. It was so much fun, and the music is so good.
Yeah, I remember that. I was in that concert. I was like,
Did you play it?
Yeah. It was so many people.
Oh, my gosh. So much fun. And, you know, that's one thing, is I'm not a snob about that kind of thing. I'm like, this is good music.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's popular, quote unquote, or not. This is really good music.
Well, it introduces so many people to the symphony.
Yeah. And it just shows off what an orchestra can do. You know, it's just amazing stuff. So I would like to do more of that kind of stuff. We're limited by our venues and when we can get them, but I would like to continue to expand in that way. So my personal goals for the orchestra are not necessarily more and more classical concerts. I would like to have more repeated classical concerts, like do doubles, and we're working towards that. We were almost there when COVID hit, we're kind of reassessing right now. Yeah, just doing different kinds of things.
We kind of did that this past weekend. We had 2 concerts.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that happy hour concert will be, that's I thought it was successful.
Yeah, I did too.
You know, we didn't have... I would like to have had 100 more people there. That was my goal, because I thought first turnout we're going to have XYZ. That's what I had planned. But if everybody there, they seem to love it, we're going to send out a survey, and if every one of them brings back 2 people next time they come, we're going to be off and running.
Yeah, that was great. So now we're going to go into the more fun part of the interview. Not that this wasn't fun, but we're going to end on a little trivia. Where's our fun little...
I love it.
Do you like our button?
I love your... Oh, it's nice and pink, too.
I know. I love my little sound
My
buttons.
daughter is not a pink person, and she's not a bow person, and she's not a ruffle person. I'm all those things.
Oh, my gosh.
And so she's like, Mom, stop doing that shit.
That's so funny.
So I like your pink button.
Oh, thank you. It's our little harp. Makes us all feel like princesses,
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly. Yeah.
So essentially, we're just going to ask you 3 questions. I'm also going to ask Angela 3 questions. We'll see who gets the most correct. And essentially, essentially
my
you just
goodness, it's a
Head to
competition.
head.
yeah, you're just like a
Mono.
you just get to say you won trivia
Yeah, we
on the
didn't
Hero
win
Talk
anything.
podcast.
All right.
Add it to your CV or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'll start with you.
Okay.
And so, just a little background trivia on the symphony. See how well you can recall these facts. When was the Tallahassee Symphony formed?
1979.
Oh yeah,
Oh wow. Dang.
I had a feeling you were gonna know that one. Okay, starting you off easy. Okay, so you were chosen to participate in the Emerging Leaders Program for LAO. What year were you chosen to participate?
Ooh.
2007.
Oh.
Oh, was it 16?
Yeah, it was.
Dang.
You're so
That's
close.
Wow.
I realized that asking the people we're interviewing like questions like from their like own history is actually quite hard because you're
Well,
like,
I'm always surprised when people can do that. Like back in 19.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I'm like,
Tuesday morning.
yeah. I'm always like, okay, when I was a junior in college, when I was this, you know, like I don't think of years that way. But
Yeah.
I know I realized it because someone asked me like, what year did you play at so and so festival? I'd be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, last question. Who was the first woman to ever have her music published?
Was it Florence Price?
No, it's way farther back than that.
Oh.
I'll give you a second chance.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint. She worked
Was
in
it
Venice. It was near the end of the
Was
Renaissance.
it Schumann?
It was a woman.
Yeah.
Claire.
Claire.
Her name was, I didn't know this either, but I'd be surprised. Madalena Casulana.
Okay, I would never know
Yeah,
that.
no,
I'm
I
on the
don't
same
know that.
Fanny Mendelssohn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was near the end of the Renaissance.
Hilda,
she
no,
lived,
She didn't have her stuff published.
well, she had her stuff in like the church,
Right.
but I don't know if that's published.
That's
Maybe.
that's what you call oral history.
Yeah, but we're just trying to throw some like women
Of course.
facts in there.
I will
but
tell you something fun. We're part of a commissioning project and have commissioned with other orchestras. We're in a consortium and we're performing a new piece by Jennifer Higdon next year.
oh my gosh, that's so
It'll
cool.
be cool. It's based on like North Carolina mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains type
Oh,
stuff.
So you're gonna have
That's
Higdon coming
amazing.
down and everything.
That
right?
would be. We should look into that. I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea.
You should, and then invite us to meet her.
Okay. Yeah. Well, y'all, we should try to get her. We should try to do that.
Yeah, I would
Oh,
love.
yeah.
I'd love to meet her. First off,
Yeah.
I mean, we brought the Augusta Reed Thomas interview into existence, which
That's
was like
true.
my goal.
Good.
All right,
Good.
so we got one.
One. Dang, 33%.
Only-
I can't even do the 2 out of 3 ain't bad meatloaf.
Okay, I gave you a hard one. I would have been surprised if you knew it, but you know, I gotta throw some facts out there. All right,
Oh no.
don't help Angela.
She likes to ask me a lot of string
I'm
questions.
actually not
Don't
really,
know
okay?
anything.
Okay, which performance venue on FSU was named after a woman?
I'm thinking through them right now. It's either Ruby Diamond. There's Ruby, Longmire, Opperman. There's like a sign in front of Opperman too. I should know this. I'm gonna say it's either Longmire or Opperman, and I'm gonna say it's Berman.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go.
There you go.
Bonus point if you know what her name is.
Opperman. Mary Opperman.
No, her name's Ella Scoble Opperman. She was the first dean of music.
I
at
like that.
FSU.
Ella Opperman. Rolls off the tongue well.
Yeah, she was the dean of music from 1911 to 1944.
Wow.
Here? Oh, yeah, because it was a women's college.
It was. Fun fact.
Cool.
All right. Which of these women are not a conductor?
Oh,
All right.
string questions. Wow.
Maren Alsop, Joanne Falletta, Karina. I looked up how to say her last name. Kalinakis, and Sophie Mutter.
That's a softball question.
What does that mean? Dang. I know a few of those names. And can you repeat the last names one last time for me?
So I said Maren, Joanne Falletta, and Sophie Mutter, and Karen Kalinakis.
I'm gonna go.
She probably doesn't know, which is why you know who it is.
Oh no. Okay. I'm guessing.
One of the names is a violinist.
Okay. That's what I was thinking
Very
too.
famous violinist.
Oh God. I really need to do.
See, I have to shame you because I lost.
So, well, see, I
Almost. I don't know yet.
See, I didn't ask you a string question, but I like
String related.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say I don't remember how you pronounce it, but I'm gonna say it was the fourth person.
She reversed them.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh. So is it Anne Sophie Mutter or Karina Kalinakis?
That one.
Kalinakis?
Yeah.
No.
Who is it? Dang.
And
Sophie.
yeah, she's a
Oh.
famous violinist.
I'm gonna Google her.
She's a great
I
violinist.
gotta know her.
All right.
Very high dollar.
So far, we're still 1-1 though.
All right.
Okay.
Should I get my voodoo doll out?
Oh, okay.
Do you have one?
I feel like my daughter has one. And she let me
That's
use it.
awesome.
All right. Last question. Who did not compose a trumpet solo?
Oh,
All right. I really hope you know this.
I do too. It's
All right.
embarrassing.
Augusta Reed Thomas, Flor Peters, Hindemith, Jennifer Higdon.
Augusta Reed Thomas did not propose a solo. She put a duet.
No, she has a solo piece.
She has a solo piece. What is it called?
I don't remember, but she composed for trumpet at some point.
And then okay, wait, I'm still want to guess, even though I got it wrong. I want to guess still. It's not Augusta. I literally didn't think so. Wow, sorry, Augusta Reed Thomas.
Well, I googled it and I was like, oh, she has a piece for trumpet.
Who were the 4 options?
Flor Peters, Hindemith, and Jennifer Higdon are the other ones.
Higdon has one. Hindemith has one. There's a Peters sonata, but there's no. You said concerto.
No, I just said something
Oh.
for solo trumpet. Whether it's a concerto, a
I'm
sonata.
pretty sure all of them have solos. Who is it?
Jennifer Higdon.
Jennifer Higdon?
Okay.
I
now you-
specifically googled this because I was trying to find a woman
All
composer.
right, you need to give us a tiebreaker now.
A tiebreaker. Oh goodness, I did not plan for a tiebreaker. Let me think. Jennifer
Jennifer Higdon has trumpet songs. I'm literally playing it. I should know that. Get out of here.
Wait, does she really?
Yeah, I'm playing it from our recital.
I'm gonna tell.
Dang.
Did I? Wait, what?
Yes, ma'am. It's called. Oh, dang.
I guess I didn't do my research very effectively.
Let's go. Does that mean I get a point?
Yeah, that means you won.
We can
It's
still-
hard coming up with these questions, and this is
Yeah,
why I shouldn't ask questions about trumpet. I was trying to stump her on her own instrument.
Yeah. Stump the
Almost.
chump.
Augusta Reed Thomas, though. I gotta look that up. Now I'm curious. I thought she.
This is going to reflect very poorly on me.
No, it's not.
No, it's
I
not.
can't know everything.
No, exactly. I always lose because of the violin stuff. I just need to do a course on violin for one semester, and then I'll win.
Oh,
I don't see one, but I won't say anything.
oh goodness. Augusta Reed Thomas, do not listen to this episode. I'm sorry.
Maybe she does. Maybe she's in the works with one.
Okay. Oh well, maybe it was Augusta Reed Thomas at the beginning, so I'll give it to you.
All right.
Let's
I had
go.
it backwards after
love
all.
What other sounds do you have on that little box?
Oh, a lot. We have.
We gotta use that.
If you want to
that's
laugh
good.
at anyone. As I look at Angela.
Okay.
Did it come pre-programmed?
Yeah, it
That's
did.
so cool.
But we have our own, like our little play out
Our
over our
ditties.
ditty. We call it our ditty.
I love your ditty.
Thank you.
It's very fun.
It's great.
It's cute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Well, that was
talking to
simple,
us
easy
today.
peasy.